So we need to understand the various objectives of government budget. Right? Objectives of government budget. So these objectives can be majorly classified into 4 types. And we will start with the first one being when we say about reallocation of resources. Reallocation of resources. How government does that? Okay. This is majorly focusing on how government can undertake how government can ensure the fulfillment of its socio-economic objectives. Right? Socio-economic, which is impacting both social systems and economic systems. Socio-economic objectives. Okay. And how does government do that? It reallocates resources. So how it can reallocate? It can impose taxes on goods which are not healthy for consumption. Impose taxes on goods to be discouraged. Right? Like tobacco products, liquor. All these products are taxed heavily in an economy. And they are in sort of imposing a higher value, not higher value, but they are imposing a heavy penalty on these consumptions by taxing them more. And they can also, the next thing they can do is, when they have to reallocate resources, there is subsidy, subsidies and tax concession. So certain economic activities are to be encouraged. So government is willing to give subsidies to agricultural production. Okay. Agricultural production, it can give that. Or beyond that, if any production activity has to be increased, so government can give rebates or tax concessions on small enterprises, tax for small enterprises. Okay. So these are the way reallocation of a service takes place. The other objective, the second objective of government can be redistribution of resources. Now, how government can do that? The major objective is to reduce inequality in an economy, right? Or when you write inequality, it can also be the gap between rich and poor. We are aiming to reduce that gap with this objective. So what are the ways it does is, you must have heard this term, progressive taxation system. So what government does is, a person who is earning more or is in the higher tax bracket, they are being charged more taxes. So for example, I'm just giving you an example. So if you are in the 0 to, this is just hypothetical values, 0 to 5 lakhs annual income bracket, you might be charged 2 to 5% tax. Please don't go on the values. This is hypothetical. If you are within the salary range of 5.10 lakhs, you will be charged more percentage. If you go beyond 10 to 20 lakh, government might charge 30%. So with each hierarchical increase in the income, the tax rate increases, right? Government can also undertake direct expenditure, right? Not all poor people are able to earn income. Even if they earn, even if they granted no tax, their income is so low that it is required for the government to voluntarily help them, step up their help. So the tax amount could help the poor, help government in funding schemes. Now, what kind of schemes we can talk about? So if government is saying a free education scheme, right? Free education for poor or people from the backward communities, okay? Healthcare, health insurance, crop insurance, all kind of facilities that are being undertaken, okay? Maybe it can also give fertilizer subsidy, okay? So these 2 points look the same, but the point of reallocation is taking or curbing the consumption of sin goods while increasing or facilitating the consumption on or encouraging the businesses. Whereas here we are talking about how we can facilitate or help poor people, right? So this is the second function of redistribution of resources. Even in this direct expenditure, we also need to understand the term of transfer payments. I hope you all know what is transfer payment. Transfer payment is a kind of payment for which there is no expectation of return in form of good or service. So if you are being paid by someone, you would like to, you would want, or they would want you to give them any good or a service in particular. But this transfer payment is a form of a unilateral payment. Unilateral means it's only one-sided. If you are giving somebody a transfer payment, it is not expected that they need to receive any good or service in return, right? So all these grants, I'm just telling you the synonyms of these transfer payment: grants, aid, okay? All these are falling under the transfer payments. So transfer payments are also part of a direct expenditure undertaken by the government. The third objective of government could be focusing on economic stability. Okay, government job is only not to take money from the rich all the time and help poor persons. It has also needing it. It has also the objective of stabilizing the economy. Now, stabilizing the economy is very simple argument, but we will elaborate it in that large fluctuations, right? We will put out examples like high inflation. Inflation is a big problem in an economy. No one wants higher prices, and the poor persons bear the biggest brunt of high inflation, and so does normal common middle class also. So high inflation is a very big task at the hand of the government to manage. Similarly, even when we are dealing with international market, so our balance of payments needs to be in right shape. Okay, we would not want our dollars reserves to reduce due to balance of payment mismanagement, which is actually happening in many countries now. In our neighborhood also, you can watch out for. Okay, so all these things are under the economic stability is also an important function of a government budget. with the government budget. Okay? So when they realize that when there is a low demand in economy, they would give concessions, tax concessions, or boost demand with the help of RBI rather, by lowering interest rate. But this is not a government task directly, it's union government we are saying. Even RBI helps us because it is a part of a monetary policy. Okay? And vice versa. Okay? When there is high demand in an economy, like recently, in order to curtail the high inflation, Reserve Bank of India increased the interest rates. So these things have to be kept into mind, right? And after the stabilizing function, there is another final function which is called, which is the one of the major functions. Every year we keep on hearing about it, is focusing on economic growth as well. Economic growth. What is growth? Increasing the real GDP. I hope you all know what is GDP. GDP means the total goods and services, the final goods and services. Final goods and services produced within the geographical area. Okay. So I'm just writing the partial definition. It is not the complete definition. You can look out for it in the chapter number NIA, National Income Accounting. So all the final goods. So if there are more goods and services produced, more goods and services means more employment. Okay, so with this, even employment is being higher. Employment is being addressed, and if there is more employment, the citizens of a country will have a higher standard of living. So people can also argue whether economic growth, only real GDP is increase is justified, or government should also focus on increasing the per capita income. But all of these things are accumulated under this. So just to take us through again, we talked about the four functions of government budget. We talked about economic growth as one of the objectives. Then we talked about economic stability. Then we talked about redistribution of resources. We talked about reallocation of resources. We also covered under which article government is mandated to publish a union budget every year. And we also understand what is actually the government budget that we are talking about. The rest of the topics will be covered in the next session.